Here's my key question to you. Why do stories never fail in leaving lasting impact on the audience? I'll tell you why this is so. Human beings love stories as they inspire, motivate, and evoke emotions in them. And that causes us to respond, to take action, to adopt the ideas and buy the products. This book, The Power of Storytelling by T.Y. Bennett, is the first of its kind. A deep dive, step-by-step guide to influential communication. Bennett, the best-selling author, has beautifully revealed the magical science behind the art of storytelling in such an explicit manner that this book has become a part of graduate course curriculum at multiple universities all over the world. A shout out to all those who are involved in speaking, selling, leading, or teaching. If you want to craft and deliver the stories to engage, persuade, and move your audience to take actions, then this video is going to help you achieve that. Rather than chasing perfection, strive to capture the connection with the audience. It's a well-proven fact that people buy based on emotion. Emotions has the power to create connections. They have the energy to cause engagements. They have the spark to stimulate learning and solidify memory that causes people to take actions. Peter Guber has rightly said, "Move your listeners' hearts and their feet and wallet will follow." To deliver influential stories, we need to understand the process of crafting them. This dynamic process consists of 3 steps: mindset, skill set, tool set. Before we dive into each one of these steps, if you're watching Success Wheels videos for the first time, we give you free PDF summary and worksheet copy of each video we make. So if you are not subscribed, then click the link in the section below so you're all set. Mindset. Mindset is a complex mental state involving beliefs, feelings, values, and disposition to act in certain ways. Do you know why your mindset is the most critical aspect of storytelling? The author says that unless your mindset is in sync with your objective, which may be your beliefs or feelings or values, then the dispositions they will create will never complement your goals. No matter how well crafted your story is, it will not influence and impact people if the mindset is not aligned with the objective. The focus. As an influencer, your focus should always be on your audience. It's not about you, it's about them. As an influencer, you have to engage the audience and must always share the message on the lines which the audience wants to hear. The best way to leave an impact on the audience is to involve them in a conversations and make sure whatever you deliver is not form of monologue. Rather, it has to be conveyed through dialogue between you and audience. Being influential doesn't come with perfection. Rather, it always comes with interaction and participation, which can be brought through 5 tools of engagement. First, audience-centric message. Share a relatable analogy or experience. Use you and lose I and me. Next, questions. Turn your presentation into conversation with questions. Humor. Lighten up the mood and make your audience go crazy for you with a great sense of humor. Shock. Bring controversy to the forefront when you have the strong stand of your point to get an overwhelming engagement of the audience. And finally, stories. To captivate the audience's imagination and to hold their interest, the story is the best of all. Remember, a great storyteller is first a great story listener. The balance. The balance between credibility and relatability gauges the engagement level of the audience for every speaker. If your audience doesn't find you credible, they will not care to listen to you. And if they are not able to relate to your message, they will not respond to your efforts of engagement. Credibility is something you build through who you are, what you know, what you do, and how you communicate. Whereas relatability comes with real communication. Invest in your character, increase your competency, and improve your communication to build credibility. Establish common ground, speak in controversial tone, and be approachable to achieve relatability. The goal. Your primary goal must be to build strong connection with the audience rather than chasing perfection. We all know that perfection is abstract and unrealistic, whereas connection has the power to reap fruits instantly. Step number 2. Skill set. A story is a reimagined experience narrated with enough detail and feeling to cause your listeners' imaginations to experience it as real. In order to acquire required skill set to become a great storyteller, we must dive deeper to know the foundation of influential storytelling. This science. Stories have been the medium of communication since its origin. We were able to understand, retell, and narrate stories even before we knew how to read and write the alphabets. Have you ever wondered why are stories so influential? Let me tell you how it happens. In our brain, we have cells named mirror neurons that allows us to experience, feel, and understand other people's intentions, actions, and emotions, due to which we feel connected with the story and the storyteller. If your story can trigger the stimulation of these mirror neurons, then the audience will begin to experience the story as if it were their own. The magic behind making stories influential is to make them more and more personal. There are two types of personal stories: experienced and observed. Experienced stories are the ones that happen directly to us, while observed experience stories are that we witness and then relate. According to the author, there are 7 reasons why stories work. Stories have a common ground of relatability. Stories ignite the imagination and senses. Stories are a safe way to reveal our priorities and sense of self. Stories are simply more effective and durable in conveying information and truth. Stories can be easily remembered and repeated, hence go viral. Stories stimulate a response and action. Stories have tremendous power to inspire, motivate others, and propel them to greater heights. Now the next concern is to how to bring the audience into your story. To engage the audience completely, you don't have to retell the story. Rather, you to relive it again. There are 3 ways to do this. 1. Place the audience in the scene. Shift the subject center to the audience directly or indirectly such that they find themselves a part of the story. Let me explain this with an example. If you were to retell a story, you might start by saying, I was standing on my back porch one day. But when you relive the story, you place the audience in the scene by saying, if you had been standing with me on my back porch. 2. Create curiosity. Evoke curiosity by throwing you-focused question at the beginning of a story. Let me illustrate. To start a goal-setting seminar, replace a routine line. I want to tell you my experience with goals. With you-focused question, saying, what stops you from achieving your goals? You will be surprised to see the difference between the two. 3. Reinforce relatability. Hook the audience by laying a common ground of relatability in the stories, which may be emotions, dream, joy or sorrow. Convert the presentation into a conversation by asking questions like, what do you think about the same? Or do you know what I mean? After knowing the science behind the stories, let's look for the skill set required to craft influential stories. The blueprint. If you want to create an amazing story, then the storyline needs to be structured in the first step. You have to bifurcate and align every step to give it a cohesive feel. Once you understand that blueprint, it becomes incredibly easy to craft the perfect story to connect with your audience. The starting point. The starting point of any story is the call to action. You can find the call to action of your story by finding the answer to these questions. What is the purpose of your story? What is the outcome you're seeking? What do you want to have happen to the audience because of listening to your story? Once you identify the purpose of the story, the call to action becomes measuring stick against which all the content of the story is considered. Be concise and to the point. The sequence. Every story has three parts: beginning, middle, and end. If you'll observe that in this order, every influential story will have the sequence of 1. The setup. It marks the beginning by providing the context, setting up the scenes, and introducing the characters. Do not drag this part, rather keep the setup phase short and purposeful. 2. The struggle. Throw your characters into the struggle so that the emotions draw the audience in. With confrontation and conflict, you can grab the attention of the audience, and the problems will hook the audience for long if the situations are relatable enough to be felt. And 3. The solution. The solution to overcome the struggle may be an idea, a strategy, or a product, and whoever or whatever provides the solution becomes the hero of the story. If the struggle is relatable, then only the solution will be credible enough to be accepted to take suitable actions. Delivery of the story is an art, which gets better with consistent practice. So practice the storytelling art and seek feedback from your listeners. Take an account of the places where you are going wrong and try to rectify the same in the next practice. Perfect your craft by recording your practice and analyzing deeply about the story key elements by searching answers to the following questions. As you listen, ask yourself, would I buy from me? Am I persuasive and compelling? Is the story engaging? Listen for the filler words such as and you knows and eliminate them. Does it feel like presentation or conversation? Are you balancing credibility and relatability? Pay attention to facial expressions, gesture, posture, and movement, etc. That way you will learn more about what works, what doesn't, where to improve by watching a video of yourself on stage. Develop a style that is natural, organic, and conversational so that people will engage and it feels authentic. And here is step number 3, toolset. Do you know how does a toolbox look like? I know most of you must have seen it. Let me describe it for you. It is a box that contains various tools like hammer, screwdriver, saw, and other tools. Analogous to this, the author has described a toolbox to create powerful stories that comprise of 6 tools to make your stories compelling, dynamic, and memorable. The 2 C's that make stories compelling: curiosity and characters. The 2 D's that make stories dynamic: dialogue and details. The two M's that make stories memorable: movement and metaphors. When you have a repairing project at home, do you use all the tools? Certainly not. You use a tool depending upon what job demands. Similarly, all the above mentioned tools will not be used in a single story, and the blueprint and goal of the story will tell you which tool to use to make the story an influential one. Let's understand their usage one by one. 1. Curiosity. As discussed above, if you want to generate curiosity in the audience, the best way to ahead is with you-focused question. Another way to captivate your audience is through framing some suspense or give some surprise. 2. Characters. Introduce interesting characters to build a deep connection with your audience. Carefully choosing characters that are relatable to the audience satisfies the first rule of storytelling. The audience must be able to relate with the characters, and for this, we should know the type of the audience we are catering. According to the study, there are 3 types of learners in the audience: visual learners, audible learners, and kinesthetic learners or hands-on learners. It is important to know how we should connect the characters for these different types of learners. Scene. Visual learners remember what they see. Hence, it is important to help them view the characters. Paint the outline and then let the audience use their imagination to fill in the details. Use visual language throughout the story for the visual learners to see the characters and relate easily. Heard. The character needs to be heard. Instead of just narrating the story, relive the story by giving dialogues to your character. Understood. The character needs a chance to be understood. To care about the solution, the audience needs to know that they fit into the struggle and they need to find the struggle relatable. Instead of just narrating the story, it's advised to relive it with the audience. 3. Dialogue. Dialogue is a powerful tool in the toolbox. If you can understand how to use this one device, it can take your stories to a level where your audience are indulged into a struggle and earnestly wait for the solutions. You will see the results in your audience's eyes, hear it in their laughter, and measure it in the increased result and influence your stories. Dialogues have the power to add dynamism because dialogue places the story in present tense, hence letting you relive the story. Dialogue lets the audience naturally imagine the scene and thus allows them to experience it. Dialogue adds impact to the important lines and leaves the greater impact. Dialogues help the characters in your story to be relatable. Balancing dialogue and narration. Dialogue drives the audience inside the story and makes them part of the landscape and the emotion. Whereas narration is used to set the scene, introduce the characters, and tie all the various elements of the story together. Use dialogue to add impact and power to your stories, and employ narration to set the context of the stories. Balancing both is somewhat tricky, but the right balance that works for you can be found only through practice. With acronym CIA, tells us about the types of the dialogue. C. Character dialogue. It allows the character to deliver their lines themselves. I. Inner dialogue. It takes the thought process of the character and give it a voice. A. Audience dialogue. It depends upon the thought process of the audience, which may be gained through questions or surveys. 4. Details. Details add realism to the story and make it come to life. It helps the audience by allowing them to paint clear mental picture. Use details in proportion. Sometimes too many details add boredom to the story and stretch it to a level where audience lose the interest. Details in your stories mainly fall into three main areas. L. Location. Try to be very specific with the location as it creates a better image in the audience's mind. For example, don't just say, I met her in the hotel at Las Vegas. Rather, to add the realism, you must say, we met in room 302 at Caesar's Palace in Las Vegas. A. Amount. Always state the quantity, be it a weight, dimension, or a size, as it gives the real-time estimation to the listener. T. Time. Always specify the time to make things tangible and memorable. Don't say, I woke up early that morning. Instead say, I woke up at 5:15 that morning. 5. Movement. Your storytelling movement should be natural and controlled. Analyze and tweak the movements that can bring out characters' personality in more impactful manner. Here are 4 types of movements: hand gestures, facial expressions, posture, motion. And number 6, metaphors. Metaphor is a tool that can make your information understandable and transferable. By showing the analogy behind 2 objects, situation, or ideas, metaphors add vivid imagery to the stories, add credibility, and make them imaginable for the audience. Stories have the real power to bind your audience with your thoughts. I hope with this book, The Power of Storytelling by T.Y. Bennett, you are now well equipped to deliver powerful stories with greater influence and impact. Now it's your turn to harness all the learnings of this book to become the ideal storyteller.